Also 2019-94147. Councillor Adam, sorry, Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've been lobbied on item number 7 and item number 10. No advice given. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen. Councillor Lawson. Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Law. Councillor Sealer. Councillor Hall. Local. Councillor Ramsey. Thank you for that. Can I just go back to one I declared? I just need a bit of advice. Last time I came to committee, the hearings I showed on the application, we deferred it. So obviously it's in my ward, and I was contacted by both objectors and the applicant. So I didn't give him any advice. But
Yes, final meeting. Yeah, but it'll hear legal, won't it? It needs to be that one. Otherwise, it'll just work its way through. It's got to be that one. Yeah.
I think most people do.
Put you on mute. That's on, that's on. Someone just tries talk, sorry. If someone just tries to say test or something into one.
Testing, testing,
And again?
testing, testing.
Yeah, I can hear that now.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to go.
Thank you for that. Admission of public, as we have no private matters, so we have, it's okay, it's in public. The petitions and petitions, I think somebody's got a petition.
Just explain that. Hi, I'm handing in a petition of 153 objector signatures against the application for a community centre and the need for a shop, which is already added on to the other 239 comments on petition from before.
Okay, can you hand that to the officer? Any other petitions? No? Okay. Have you got any questions from the public? No? No? Okay. We move on to the item 7, application number 2019-94147. And can we have the first speaker, Mohammed Riaz? Sorry, 1 minute. Sorry about that. I'm jumping.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sarah Longbottom. I'm the case officer for this application. The application site comprises a split-level building in use as a retail shop with ancillary accommodation within the roof space and to the rear, attached to a mosque and education centre. On the western side of Ravenshouse Road, Dewsbury Moor. So the aerial image here shows, you can see the quality food store identified, the northern part of the image, the attached mosque to the south, car park further south, residential properties to the east and west. The application was deferred at the subcommittee on the 25th of November to enable further discussions to take place between officers and the applicant in relation to the provision of a retail aspect to the proposed scheme, in addition to amendments to reduce the bulk and mass of the proposed building to overcome residential and visual amenity concerns. Officers' concerns related to the cumulative bulk and mass of the proposals and the impact on the occupants of number 1 Low Road. This image shows the proposed elevations of the development. And if you just go back to the photos, just to remind members, number 1 Low Road is shown, highlighted there, annotated in red. Additional supplementary information was received from the applicant on the 24th of January, and this rebuts the 3 reasons for refusal as set out by officers in the report. This information is included within the report and has also been sent to members directly by the applicant. Notwithstanding this information, for the reasons set out within the main assessment of the officer report, the recommendation by officers remains unchanged, and that is for the 3 reasons for refusal. I'll just move through the images. This was the street scene view with the proposed development to the right-hand side of that image. And as members will recall, there's been a previous approval for extensions to the existing mosque. So this image shows that proposal in relation to that previous approval for the extensions at the mosque. These are the floor plans for the proposed community centre. Just in respect of the 3rd reason for refusal, which relates to the alternative adequate provision of a shop, members did discuss this at the last meeting. This aerial image, although it might be hard to see, it's quite small. If I can just, it won't let me zoom. If I can zoom in a bit, I might lose it. If that's any better. Zoom in a bit more, it probably won't do there. But the cross indicates the location of the application site where my cursor is at the minute. The information supplied by the applicant includes a table which sets out a number of other units or retail provision that they consider to be within an accessible location of the site. So the cross, as I said, indicates the location of the application site. Immediately to the south, where the little hand is now, that is White Rose Catering, which is included within that table provided by the applicant. This is a cash and carry business open to trade and wholesale, selling items in bulk, and conditions have been imposed on approvals at that site to ensure that sales were confined to trade customers only and not general members of the public. So the officer's view is that isn't considered to be an alternative adequate provision. If I just move the image up a tiny bit. Where my hand is now, this is Roy's Mini Market to the northeast of the site on Heckman Dwight Road. However, from Google Street View images from March 2021 and recent visits by officers, this does appear to be vacant, empty and not in use, and therefore again not considered to be adequate alternative provision. And then third unit within the table is Ravens House Mini Market to the southeast of the site. This is 0.4 of a mile from the site. Whilst policy LP48 of the local plan doesn't give a definition of what is considered to be accessible, it is the view of officers that the distance of the Ravens House Mini Market from the local community surrounding the application site isn't accessible in the sense of being accessed by all members of the community. But members may consider that otherwise. So to summarise, the proposals would have a detrimental impact on visual and residential amenity and result in the loss of a community facility with no adequate alternative provision. And the recommendation is for refusal as set out within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So can we have Mr. Mohammed Raz, please? Yeah. Mr. Jabbar, yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon. Basically, I'm Jabbar. Now, I live in Durham in the area which is not far from this application. And also, I am a member of the community. I am involved with larger groups. Now, I come here today for two reasons. One, this application has come before into this committee. It's been deferred to today. Now, the decisions obviously going to be the panel, so that's fine. Recommendations are officers. Officers on 3 occasions have put their views forward. There is a genuine reason behind it. Officers have a delegate power and they could approve. They don't need to come to the council in the chamber and ask, or can the councillors decide that? Now, so refuse application from officers, obviously, that's a delegation. Now, as from my point of view, this shop has been a very valuable to local community for quite a long time. But particularly last year and this year, this shop has saved disabled old people who live near the mall, particularly both Asians and the English people, and few different cultures as well. Those people have shown their expression because they said, yes, we really want that shop. They put application on the table. There's a petition which I think that the lad is going to already discuss with you, or already some objections we put. I don't understand what the problem is. There is a genuine reason, there is all information behind, all the communities against it, officers I think are against it, so I do not understand the councillors' argument. Councillors, yeah, they are accountable to the community, so councillors got responsibility to take the views of the community. They've got to look at the area. We have board members there. I will not consult board member because he's in a different role. But yes, all the council on this chamber, you got the paperwork. I do not, yes, I do support the mosque. The mosque is very nice. It's been permitted from the last year. It's not been built. I don't know, ask.
Mr. Jabbar, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I represent Durham. We are building a centre there. That's going to save all the community. And if you got any questions, I can answer you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jabbar. You can sit down now. Can we have Muhammad Ali, please? Oh, okay. Mohammed Raz, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I shouldn't be here this time because last meeting should be decided, either pass or either fail, both. It's been deferred for some reason. Now, I just want to ask a couple of things. First, I want to ask to Mr. Chairman. 2 days ago, I received a threatened message from Mr. Chairman through the Mr. Jabbar. He sent a message to me.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Raz.
Yeah.
Are you accusing me that I've been sending you threatening messages?
Yes.
Right. Who sent you? Who told you?
Mr. Jabbar is witness. You send message to him.
Well, can we just stop? Can you just stop speaking, please? Just 1 minute.
No, I'm not withdrawing. We got a witness here.
Through you, Chair, in terms of matters which you're raising, there is a separate complaints procedure which you would need to go through. This isn't the forum to be raising matters like this. The complaints procedure, all the guidance...
Okay, I need to just mention, I mentioned it. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's
If you need to complain, Mr. Raz, there's a procedure.
I will.
And after the meeting, the officers will give you the details, okay? You can carry on, and you've only got 3 minutes.
Yeah, I will do. And other thing is, I provide everything, whatever you required to fill this application. You got all the files there, and I hope everybody, when they made a decision, they just follow the law and read the file, and whatever is good for you, you think this is the right thing, you decide it, and this is your right to decide. But I just mentioned these things, everybody should aware, and that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Muhammad Ali.
Hi. Everybody has obviously seen the report which I gave. And I'd like to add, the last meeting, obviously, I have evidence to prove the last meeting was a fix. And some people here are involved in this.
Legal Officer Sandra Haig, only comments about the planning application, not about behaviour or complaints, separate procedure.
Right, okay.
It should only be about the planning application because those are the considerations that all the councillors can take into account.
Okay.
If you got any issues, afterwards we'll give you the details where you can complain, okay?
I think my solicitor will be
Yeah,
involved
well,
anyway
just
now,
talk
so
about
it's
the
fine.
application, yeah?
And also, well, here it's quite simple. There's a community centre being built in less than 100 yards away, which the letter was attached by the organisation, which is a community centre which will provide all the facilities that this mosque are trying to provide. In that sense, there's no local shop for local people. Why should people suffer for a community centre? There's already one being made, which last meeting, none of our ward councillors that were involved in the process mentioned anything about that, which they should have, I think. But they didn't, because people here are from different areas. They don't know what's going on in our area. That was vital information that they just didn't mention. I did raise my hand, but no one let me speak. Now, with that being said, the letters are all attached, the petition from before, and the comments against this application, total 239. Another 153 petition signed I've also given in. The people don't want it, they don't need it. It's not like a necessity that's needed because there's one already being built 100 yards away. That's bigger than the one, this mosque want to build anyway. It's a much bigger space, it's a much bigger mosque for the same people, same area. I don't understand what will gain like a second community centre in the same area for the same thing. What's that going to do anyway? There's one already there, there's loads of local community centres, there's no shops around. Wireless catering is a wholesaler, it's not a shop. The applicants have given false information there. It's a wholesale which said along but have just confirmed. Though the shop, that's closed down, mini market, that doesn't sell 50% of the stuff that I sell. So technically my shop is needed more than a community centre in, whichever way you look at it, on the weighing scale, it just outweighs it in every angle, every sense. And the people on this panel, the area you live, you have a local shop. Why should this area suffer and walk 0.4 miles or further for their local shop? I mean, where's the common sense in that? There's none. And the supporting comment from last application, that also has been sent under different terms, and I've got evidence for that as well. That supporting comment shouldn't have been put through anyway. So with all that being said, please make a fair decision, consider everything, because there is a lot more than meets the eye here. So all I ask, like my father said, take this seriously. It's not needed here at all. It's a simple open and short case. This shouldn't have taken 3 years to decide. People are against it. It's not needed. There's one being built already which have laid the groundwork, they put the frames up. I did send along bottom some photos of that. And you know what I mean, there's just no need for it at all in every, sense. There's none. There's just not one justification that anyone can say that is, but there's no valid reason why.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Your time's up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can we have Mr. Imtiaz Amin from the applicant side?
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, I'm going to talk about 3 points. The first point relates to the actual organisation, what it does, and how it's been operating. It's a charitable organisation established in around 2000. In 2005, we purchased a building. We made an application to convert that into a mosque and madrasa, which came before this committee at that time, which was approved. Subsequently, we purchased 2 adjacent buildings and a piece of land, which was converted into a car park, which again has been approved. The new mosque planning application, which has been referred to, which I don't want to discuss too much because that's not what's before us, has also been approved. In total, in the last 15, 16 years, we've spent and raised approximately £2.5 million, which has gone, all that money has gone into the area. That's including purchasing the buildings, improving them, providing an education service, paying staff, utilities, providing other activities. For example, during COVID, we spent a considerable amount of time providing food parcels to the locals, regardless of religion or race. We've done cleanups with the cemetery, and our primary focus is on education. Some of you councillors will know that approximately 15 years ago, the education department did some work regarding supplementary education and classes in the evening, whether that be a madrasa, whether that be church schools, whether that be community groups. And what they found was that those children who attend these supplementary and extracurricular activities do a lot better academically than those who don't. So we have focused on trying to improve the whole ethos and a holistic approach. So a child comes to us, it's getting sporting activities, getting religious education, it's improving their school education as well. And the purpose of the community centre will be to expand on that. So we provide a greater service, not just to children, but to adults, to disabled people, to women, to different groups, so that the whole area is enhanced. And that's the primary purpose of our organisation and what we do. Moving on to the actual application, one of the refusals is on the grounds, as the officer said, on visual and residential amenity. And one of the, if you look at the grounds of refusal, it says it detracts from the character of the area. Now, I just want to, I think you were sent photographs by email. You will have seen that the existing building is an absolute eyesore. It is decrepit, old, and it protrudes out at different angles at various places.
30 seconds.
Which is obvious there. So on the visual amenity side, the surrounding area will be enhanced by this new building. The old building looks awful. The new building will look much better. The objection is not valid. If you look at LPA 24, all 10 grounds can be objectively looked at and can be decided that those are met, not a refuse on those grounds. And the final point, the overshadowing of the garden area next door, no evidence has been provided by the officer in relation to that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can we have Thoiba Patel, please? You've got 3 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Deva. I'm a servant of the Dewsbury Moor community. I'm an ex-student and now part-time Islamic Studies teacher from Hodsi Azam Education Centre, through which I have built and maintained a strong and personal connection to some of the children of the area. During my lessons, I try to be as helpful as possible and give them a safe space to ask any questions about things important to them. I have found that the students can be confused about or struggle with things many of us find obvious or take for granted, and it is great that I can help them. In a recent lesson, the topic of education and careers was discussed, and they asked multiple questions surrounding how to achieve their career goals, what subjects to take, and as simple as how high school, college, and university work. These students are aged 8 to 11. They have so much potential, energy, and drive, but have little idea or guidance on how to chase their passions, as their parents don't have the knowledge, experience, or time due to priorities such as putting food on the table, and there are no other accessible sources of counselling and guidance. Many of the children and young adults living in Dewsbury Moor do not have access to this kind of support, which I feel is critical to help them aim high and achieve their potential. There is such a great need and opportunity to provide the support they need for them to flourish. They are bright individuals who, with the right guidance, can go on to attend top universities, including Oxbridge, or take up highly skilled vocations. The proposed hub would allow us to bring this type of support to the community. Other reasons that make the planned Dewsbury Moor Youth Centre and Community Support Hub a necessity include Dewsbury Moor has been and still is one of, if not the most deprived area in Kirklees. The planning office highlight the existing problem of antisocial behaviour in the area. There is no existing local or nearby facility provided for the youth of the area for meeting, socialising, entertainment, or where they can receive support for the many challenges that they face. There are no facilities for the homemakers, unemployed, retired, or the elderly for meeting, socialising, entertainment, or where they can receive support for their day-to-day difficulties or needs. The unmet requirements and needs have a huge short, medium, and long-term negative impact on the community. The benefits of a centre providing the services required by the community are many times greater than from having a local shop. Neither the Southview Centre in Scout Hill, the Short Start Centre on Heckman Mike Road, or the Rugby Club provide the facilities or services that are needed and proposed. MAF Dewsbury own the building housing the Quality Food Store and would like to demolish, rebuild, and repurpose the building to provide critical facilities for the youth and wider community. Some of the proposed and planned services include a safe space for all young people of the area, a social hub with games, events, refreshments, and other regular group activities, exercise and health seminars, education support, behavioural support, emotional and physical support for mental health, bullying or discrimination, career support, a reading of
30 seconds.
drug and substance abuse awareness and support, organised day trips, tea and coffee mornings for homemakers, unemployed, retired, and all community members, health seminars and classes, mental health awareness clinics, exercise classes, parenting skills and support, post-bereavement support, food bank and parcel distribution, not-for-profit hot meal service, poverty alleviation, grocery click and collect support for disabled and elderly, other support on demand identified through consultation and assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Bang on 3 minutes. Can we have Iqbal Mohammed, please?
Thank you and hello again. I hope you all received and reviewed the supporting information sent by email. You've seen and heard the response to the visual amenity objection from Mr. Amin, which I won't repeat. The assessment ignores the existing state of the building and the positive impact of replacing that with the proposed plans. Regarding the size and bulk, we were in consultation with the planning office and advice was requested, but none was received. Even the suggestion of a flat roof was rejected. Policy LP 48 relates to supporting development that protects, retains and enhances provision, quality or accessibility of existing community, education, leisure and cultural facilities. Does not relate to retail. The proposed plans will 100% deliver this enhanced provision of new services. Demolition of the existing ugly shop and replacing it in the style of the new mosque building will help achieve the requirements of policy LP 24 as stated. The owner occupants of One Low Road have been consulted and are fully supportive of the application as per their email. The assessment seems more concerned about the impact on potential future residents than the wishes and well-being of the existing residents. Any concern for future residents should be invalid, as any prospective buyer with an issue would obviously not purchase and look elsewhere. The assessment ignores the significant negative impact of the existing building, not on the service, the area, residents, road safety and local properties. Regarding the loss of the local shop, the points made about why those are made, but we have heard that they will be applying for a retail service to complement their trade business. There is an additional Saver store which is closer than Roy's Market, which wasn't on my list because it didn't come up on Google. So there are 4 grocers convenience stores within a 5 to 7 minute walk, and a further 5 within a 10 to 15 minute walk. The centre opening times will not overlap with busy times at the neighbouring mosque, as confirmed at the last meeting. Most of the users of the centre will be local and within walking distance. However, MEMD guarantees the indefinite use of the car park if and where required. There were concerns raised about looking onto a large blank wall for the residents. Compared to the existing
30 seconds.
Compared to the existing view, this is much preferred. However, we can consider with consultation and planning approval to turn that into a design feature. We are a not-for-profit charitable organisation, and the proposed facility will be for the benefit of the community of Dewsbury Moor, as described in the planning application and supporting materials. I conclude by urging the members to vote to approve the application for the Dewsbury Moor Youth Centre and Community Support Hub. Your approval would be a sign of support for and a huge boost to the community of Dewsbury Moor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further speakers, members? Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on something that one of the last speakers mentioned about a Savers store. Where is that on that map, please? Because it's Chair, would it be possible for us to identify that so the committee can be aware of where that is? Thank you.
It's just on Henton High Road as soon as you get onto it, then left. The end of that low road, then left. And small shop, I drove past it just 3 days ago.
It's just where the zebra crossing is, just there in opposite the community centre. There's a community centre, bottom of Church Lane.
I'll find it there.
We'll come back to you. Just Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've seen this, I've gone through this petition very quickly, presented by objector. I think the language they used in this petition is not right one. It shows that they have some internal community matter. This is not, it's a planning material, okay? I think we members should think very carefully, as it's not threatening or blaming or something other community, but it's not right. It's not a petition, so we should not take into account when we make a decision on this application. Thank you, Chair. Can I carry on? Sorry, you want to say something? Yeah. No, it's okay.
Carry on, Sokol. Councillor Sokol.
Yeah. With regard to application, yeah, I think I was here when last time he was member took the decision to defer it for some more information from the applicant. Yeah, applicant has come back, has given some more information to officer. But to me, I think the main reason is the loss of shop. I think it's very negative. Yeah, if we say it's a very, the proposed community center is a big building. I don't think so. This shop looks like a bigger than that. Yeah, and the next door to the resident, number 1 low road. He supports that, but he's not against that. He's happy with that because it's not a negative impact on the property. Mr. Chair, if there is a loss of shop there, I read that in the report, there are other shops not too far away, as one of the applicants said, less than a half mile, about a mile, with 5-6 minute walk. Yeah. objector said in the every approve this application, there will be antisocial behavior. I think antisocial behavior is now because of the shop there, because the young youth, they are walking on the road. They have no place to sit down somewhere. This proposed community center, I feel, it will provide some space for the young people to do there some activity, and it takes the antisocial behavior away from there. Yeah? So, other thing, some objectors have said there is the mosque already there. Yeah? I always take into account competition. If there is another community center mosque, that's not a planning issue. Yeah? Competition or planning. So we should think it very carefully when we consider this application. Mr. Chair, on the issue, I think we should, in the interest of the young people there, the community center, and the benefit of the community, I think we should approve this application. I'm happy to approve the application. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we just come back to that?
Can you just explain where the shop is?
Showing it around 90 to 100 Hepton White Road. The photo on Google is about a year old, so it doesn't show the shop. But there is a big sign saying European Mini Market, but the front of that is now a Super Sales store. As I saw it, I did stop and take a picture. I'm 100% certain what I saw, but I apologise if I've made a mistake.
Okay, thank you. We've got it on the plan.
We're just going to show you the location on the like the Google image that we provided earlier on. So Sarah's just going to do that for you. So just zoom in again.
There's no audio on the internet.
It's going to be uploaded afterwards. There's a problem with the stream for Huddersfield.
So that, sorry, through you, Chair. I just don't want to zoom in too much in case it won't come back. But the location of that European Mini Market or Super Saver is close to the junction with Church Lane on Heckman Dwight Road, where the white hand is here. So it's to the north of, this is the Roy's Mini Market that we said that was closed. And it's showing as being here in this location. Yeah. In terms of the distance, it is further than the Roy's Mini Market and the Ravens House Mini Market in Officers' View. So I haven't measured that, but.
Okay, thank you for that. Has everybody got that, yeah? Councillor Gegg, do you want to come back on this?
Thank you, Chair. I think it was just really important for us to know where that location was. Thank you to the officers for pulling that up at short notice. Just on picking up on what Councillor Sokol said, and going back to some of the comments, if I may, that have been made, these decisions are quite often finely balanced, and although people on the applicant side and the objector side may feel very passionately about their point of view, I can only speak for myself, and I'm sure this is echoed by other members on here. We are deciding these, all of us objectively, and with regards to impartiality. And that is something that I don't feel is actually being acknowledged given the tone of some of the documents I've seen today. So what I would just say is that from what I've seen, I think there are clearly really good arguments on both sides of this application. I think obviously there's the loss of the shop, which I know that all of the members here have, a lot of the members here previously have expressed concern about, including myself. I think one of the things that Councillor Sokol said was the benefits of the community centre had to be balanced with what the loss of the shop. Obviously, that is a matter for members to decide. My view is that the community centre will offer a lot of benefits. It is going to replace an eyesore of a building at the moment. Number 1, Low Road does not have any objections to that, which would be the prime site for an objection. If you were going to have anyone object, that's the nearest and most impacted building by that. So from my point of view, I would be minded to second an approval if I'm correct that Councillor Sokol was putting that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I hadn't realised Councillor Sokol had moved approval, because I was getting ready to move the officer's recommendation, because it seems to me that there are really good reasons why they are making this recommendation. It is difficult.
Councillor Pinnock, just 1 minute. Can you not speak, please? We've got a meeting that's going on, so if you want to speak, can you go outside, please? Thank you.
The point being that there are issues on both sides, as Councillor Gregg has pointed out. I can see the argument for having the community centre there, and if you like, we are faced with weighing up the advantages of having a shop, regardless of where the other shops might be, against a community centre. And it's a bit of an invidious choice, isn't it, if you think about it? However, let me go through the reasons for refusal in turn. The first reason I'm not quite so sure about, because the plan shows the mosque itself, and this development would be an addition to one side of it. So I'm not absolutely sure, maybe officers will correct me in this, I'm not absolutely sure that objection stands up. However, the second one, to me, does stand up. And I think we should ignore for a moment what the current occupants of number 1 Low Road actually say. You have to be objective about these sorts of things, and that reason is there because in the view of officers there would be an interference with the amenity of that house, regardless of what the current occupants say. And I think that's an important point which we as members of the committee do well to remember. You don't necessarily go by what the current occupants of a property say about these things. The third reason, I think, from some aspects, is the most important one. And forget for a moment what the shop looks like. Several people have said this shop is a mess. Well, that's their opinion, but that isn't necessarily the reason for building something else, which might, in their opinion, be better. That is not a sufficient reason for saying, just because the current building is a mess, you've got to get rid of it and replace it with something nicer. Yes, it would be nice, and indeed I think the plans show a building which would enhance the area. However, it results in the loss of a shop. And in many ways, I'm not particularly interested where the other shops are. I'm thinking of my own circumstances in Kirklees, where the convenience shops are. And there are some places which haven't got convenience shops, other places which have got more than one.
and they provide a facility for the local community, as this one does, and we've had testimony to that effect. So I think we cast that away. With, you know, you've got to think twice before you do that. So I think there are very good reasons, notwithstanding the advantages that a community centre of the type outlined would bring to the area. But and even the replacement shop is not available at the moment. If you were to close the existing shop tomorrow, then there wouldn't be a shop to take over without people having to walk quite a distance to it. So I do think, I know I've taken a while to express all of this, but I think there are very good grounds for following the officer's recommendation and refusing this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey?
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the community centre, I'd just like to ask a question, if that's all right. I think it was really clear from the presentation that the community centre is for everybody in the community. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
the mosque is obviously for Muslims. The community centre.
Can you just come through me, please? If you just go there.
I'm so sorry.
My apologies.
Yeah, if you just go there and just explain, please. Thank you.
Yeah, we explained at the last committee, this is a service, a facility for everyone. So regardless of anything, without taking time to list what everything means.
Thank you.
can I also ask then, because again, a big point was around the community benefits for the community centre. One of the gentlemen said that there was another community centre within 100 yards. Is that not available for everybody to use then?
I think we can maybe answer that. That community centre is also a similar community centre, but this is maybe something for that area where it is. So I think, how far is the other community centre?
Which one are you talking about?
The Selfie Centre is
probably about present mosque.
Nobody else can. You've had your time. You've had your time.
The only reason I'm saying is it was said 100 yards. I wrote it down. That seems to be very close. If there isn't a community centre there, that helps.
No, it's my word. There isn't a community centre 100 yards away. There is a mosque nearby, but no community centre.
Through you, Chair, the location of the site, I think that as far as officers understand, that was referred to, is here. The application site is here. The other site referred to by speakers is here. This is another mosque. If I just move on. There was an approval in it's gone. Sorry. There was an approval in 2017, and the plans are up there on the screen. And this was for erection of extensions to the existing mosque and alterations. And that is from what the information that's been provided and from a search by officers, this is what's being referred to. But the details there show an extension to add additional facilities to that existing mosque.
So just to confirm, it appears from the recent photographic evidence that this community centre is under construction, so it's not built at this moment in time, but we've seen photographic evidence to say it's begun to be implemented. Thank you, Chair.
Right, yeah. Mr. Ali, do you want to say something?
First of all, the Euro shopper that's closed down 1 year ago. They were selling dodgy cigarettes that got shut down. and that's near where Mr. Mumtaz said, near the zebra crossing. Everybody knows that. That's false information. Second of all, the community centre are giving you a letter from that mosque, and it confirms they're going to hold everything for all the community, English, Asian, mix everything. That letter was provided, and it's been stamped by them. The mosque in Pilgrim, it's got the postcode, road name, everything on it. If you can check on the map, it's very close. It's less than 100 yards away. The same facility, what this mosque wants to do, they're going to do it there as well. They're giving you written evidence of that. The European shop, that's shut down. So I don't understand where that...
Okay, thank you. You made your point. Thank you very much. Thank you. No, I think we've had enough of speaking. Thank you very much. So, Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with my colleague, Councillor Pinnock. We have valid reasons. Just saying that they're not valid doesn't make them not valid. These are in line with the legal requirements and the planning requirements of what's needed and what's acceptable and what's not. You have to be very, very sure about what you're doing if you go against these reasons. You have to be really, really convinced. This committee, I'm sure we'll all agree here, support the work of the mosque. We admire the work that they do, but this application, to my mind at the moment, is not in a state that we can pass it with. You have a mover and a seconder to go against officer's recommendation. If that falls, I will move that we accept officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I did also pick up, like Councillor Ramsey, about that there is a community centre in the area. I did hear that actually said. Can I just clarify something? Who actually owns the shop?
The charity wants their position, the applicant.
Right. So they're the landlords.
Can the officers answer that, please?
I think about what you always says, can you please just leave the officers and talk.
Thank you, Chair. From the information provided, it is the applicant, the mosque that owns the mosque charity that owns the shop.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Can I just say that I have reason to drive past this shop several times a week. It's a very, very obviously popular shop. There are always customers in it. And I actually, both sides have talked really passionately about the shop and about the need for the community centre and the mosque. I would have loved if they could have actually both come together and somehow created this community centre, but also have been incorporating this shop as well, because they've said that the state of the shop, it's untidy, it's a bit of a mess.
Councillor Lowe, 1 minute. Can you just be quiet at the back, please? Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, they are saying that, you know, the state of the shop, it's untidy, it is a mess. I would love them to have worked together and to be able to, you know, build a new building, but also incorporate a shop as well for the community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
First off, I'll start with this. When people come to a planning meeting, they start accusing people, chairs, members of this and other. Don't do me, it don't do you any good, because it's quite easy for me to change my mind. And you never know, I might have done. I might have been voting one way, but to be said that you do this, you do that, you do the other, you're really not doing yourself any favours at all. That said, since it's a community centre, I think it might be an idea to have some classes for community relations and how to behave at meetings. Might be a starting point for this place. I've known this shop for over 40 odd years because, simple reason, I used to work at British Gas at Ravensthorpe, and I used to call in many a time in the morning when I was coming home. And it's still here after all these years, so it must be doing something right for it still to be there. I did say last time there's more to this application than meets the eye.
And I think that actually has been proved today because it is the charity that owned the shop. Now, there's more that I can say, but I won't. Whether I do vote again on this or not remains to be seen. But in a finishing remark, I've done hundreds of planning committees over years and chaired many of them. I've never been in a meeting where we've had an application where the protesters and the people for and against it have been so rude. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other members? So if there's nobody else, Councillor Sokol, you're proposing approval and you're seconding.
Is it working? Yeah. We need to specify the reasons and also to draw attention to in the report that there were highways concerns about the travel plan, car parking and the need for a section 106. So if Julie wants to, do you want to add?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of if members are looking at the motion to approve the application, looking at the reasons for refusal, so there's the 3 reasons for refusal which are set out in the report. So that linking in with then what Councillor Sokol said, so in terms of the first reason for refusal, so that focused very much on sort of the visual amenity side of things, and the overall sort of bulk and massing that will be created by the proposed building. Councillor Sokol sort of took into account in terms of the existing shop that was on site, and considered that the actual overall design of the proposed replacement building is acceptable from a visual amenity perspective. I think looking at materials as a condition which is set out as part of the consideration, I think in the report as well. So you considered the overall bulk and massing acceptable in relation to the character of the area. Is that correct for that first reason? In terms of the second reason, that related to the residential amenity side of things, and the impact on number 1 Low Road, you once again, as part of the discussions, set out that you didn't feel that there would be that sort of overbearing impact on the neighbouring, the number 1 Low Road. And so you felt that that was a discounted reason as well. And then finally, in terms of the provision of the community centre use, you picked up in terms of like the competition and things, and you felt that the benefits of providing this community centre, as set out as part of the debate, that outweighs the loss of that shop unit on site. So you moved to approve, which was then seconded. Just to run through then in terms of some suggested conditions if members are to look at approving the application. As officers, we would suggest looking at things like the time scale for implementation, which is a standard condition, as well as being in accordance with the plans, the materials of use, which I just referred to a second ago. As you will have seen from the report, consultation took place with the Coal Authority, and as part of the condition there are investigation works recommended as part of the condition. Environmental health have suggested conditions relating to noise, the hours of opening, contaminated land, which standard conditions there. Security measures have been advised by the police liaison officer. And then finally, if members are looking to approve the application and you want to see the highway provision provided as well, as set out at paragraph 1020 of the officer's report. Reference is set out to tying this application to the car park application to ensure that car parking provision is provided, and that would need to be done through a legal agreement, so a section 106 agreement. So the motion on the table then to approve the application subject to the delegation of authority to officers to impose all necessary appropriate conditions and to secure the section 106 agreement tying the application to the car park application. Does that provide a sufficient summary in terms of the recommendations? Yeah, as part of the conditions, the highway conditions, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Can we go to the vote, please?
So to vote to delegate to officers to approve, Councillor Pinnock.
Yes.
Councillor Lawson.
Yes.
Councillor Stephen. Councillor Gregg. Councillor Lowe.
Yes.
Councillor Lunart. Councillor Dad. Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Sokol. Councillor Ramsey.
Yes.
Councillor Sane. So that's 4. That vote falls. It's 4-6 and 1 abstention.
So the application is refused? No? Is it Councillor Pinnock and Councillor Lawson, yeah?
Okay, to vote to refuse, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Lawson. Councillor Stephen. Councillor Gregg.
Yes.
Councillor Lowe. Councillor Luna. Councillor Dad. Councillor Hall. Councillor Sokol. Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Sane. Okay, so that is refused.
Yeah, the application is refused. Thank you. And can you, officer, can you assist these people and give them the right information if they want to put a complaint in? Right, application number 2021-9509. Are we ready?
Thank you, Chair. The application site consists of a 2-storey detached dwelling to the north-east with a Grade 2 listed St John's Church and just outside the boundary of the conservation area. Members will recall that this application was brought to the last subcommittee on the 25th of November 2021 and deferred to enable further discussions between officers and the agent and applicant in order to reduce the scale of the scheme and amend the design. So the current slide up now shows the proposal that was brought to members previously at the last committee meeting. So as you'll recall, Commission sought for a front extension, first floor extension over the existing garage, two-storey rear extension and a single-storey rear extension, although that part has been previously approved as part of a larger homes notification. Some alterations are also proposed in the form of additional openings within the elevations of the original dwelling. Following further negotiations between officers and the applicant, amended plans have been submitted, setting the rear extension in from either side elevation and down from the boundary. Just move on to that one. So down from the ridge. So setting from the boundary with the listed church and down slightly from the ridge of the original dwelling. Also, projection of the front extension has been increased slightly. This is this element here. It wouldn't exceed the projection proposed at the time of the original submission, and the openings to the front elevation of that extension would be more in keeping with those of the existing dwelling. Due to the revisions which reduce the overall scale of the proposals, albeit quite modestly, bringing development away from that boundary, which was the concern of officers in relation to the impact on the setting of the listed building and the conservation area, and not being subservient in relation to the host property. Approval is now recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Can we have Amar Zarif, please? You've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
I'll keep it shorter than it was before because of obviously the changes that have taken place, but by way of a summary, we purchased the property. It was a derelict house that needed a lot of work. We've got rising damp leaks and issues with movement. The property had been empty for 2 years. There's planning permission to knock down the house and rebuild a new house on the same site, plus another house in the garden, plus a road. We've got planning permission to build an 8-metre rear extension, which I've pushed ahead with simply because I need to provide a home for my parents, and they can't use anything other than the ground floor. The house is not in a conservation zone. Following the positive comments from councillors Pinnock, Hall, Gregg, Sokol and others, following the last meeting, the planners approached us and said, if you reduce the side extension by 70 centimetres, we will support it. We've just accepted it, quite frankly. So after a year, they've offered us that, and that's fair enough. I've not then troubled everybody to attend as they did before. So we have the support of the church next door. We have the support of, obviously, the church warden, Chris Breer, who some of you know. We have the support of the Upper Hopton Community Association and our neighbours. The extension itself, what we've tried to do is save the house. So the extension itself is actually going to be the main house. So they'll be stuck together, but the new house will support the older house because of the movement and all the rest of it. Obviously, I think Councillor, Adam Gregg mentioned trying to make the house a bit more attractive. We have tried to do that, but the planners have resisted any changes to the front, so we've left it as it is. But please bear in mind, the property itself is wholly private, and the only reason you can see the side of the house is because the church's drains go across the back onto the side of the house. Their drains collapsed, so we removed the tree line to fix their drains, and then we're working with Murphy Trees to put those back in place. The property itself at the rear is completely private. I've left my glasses in the car. I can't see that screen, but there's a photograph a bit ago that it was quite green, and you can see from the top there's tree lines all the way around, so you can't actually see the actual garden itself. And from the distance from the back of the church, you can only see the roof line. The entrance to the church is about 200 yards further up the road, and opposite the house is an 8-foot wall. Behind it are two properties that obviously they can't see our house, we can't see, there's a tree line. Obviously the house is in disrepair. We've had complaints from the neighbours to do something about it, but there are so many issues with the house that once you start, you can't then just stop in one place because the whole roof needs to come off. There's a bit of movement on one side.
Thank you. Your 3 minutes are over.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members? Councillor Lawson?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's good to see that when we make recommendations to applicants, they go away and they do them, and they negotiate well with officers, and that's to be commended. I don't see any reason why this can't be passed in its current state. I'd like to move it for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Law?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know this area really, really well. I've got family who live there, spent a lot of time there as a little girl. And again, I have reason to pass there several times a week via Ravensthorpe. I just have one little tiny concern, and that is about the proximity to trees with TPOs on. I mean, officers, I assume, are happy with the distance in relation to these trees. It's just that in my ward we have an issue where somebody bought a house many years ago, 5 trees with TPOs on. 10, 20 years further down the line, these trees now is having real problems. Unfortunately, we can't do anything with them. So I'm just sort of thinking, years ahead, are officers happy that and the extensions are near enough away from the trees, taking in the next 20 years?
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to paragraph 10.5 in the 10.35, sorry, in the committee report, that does cover the tree aspect. It has been assessed in relation to the proposal in relation to the trees, and officers do consider them to be acceptable in that regard.
Is that okay, Councillor Law? Thank you. Councillor Hall?
Mr. Chair, just looking around, make sure everybody's sat down, because for a change I'm going to agree with Councillor Bolt. In his letter, one thing what he does say is that, you know, this is a far better application than what they could do under permitted development. As I well know, in my ward, I've got a house, I think it will finish off in Huddersfield at the back and probably Howley or Morley at the front. It's that bloody big. It is reasonably well hidden, is this property. They have listened to us, to what we said last time. And I think the sooner they're allowed to get on with it and get this development done, the better. So I think, if you move it, John, I'll second it.
Okay. Any other members? No? Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Thank you.
To vote to officer's recommendation to approve the application, Councillor Pinnock, Councillor Lawson, Councillor Stephen, Councillor Gregg, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Luna, Councillor Dodd, Councillor Hall, Councillor Sokol, Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Sane.
4.
That's passed. Thank you.
Item 9, 2021-91801.
Okay, thank you, members. This is a outline application for planning permission. Application for outline planning permission for a petrol filling station at the western side of Heckman White Road within the settlement boundary of Dewsbury Moor. The surrounding area in terms of uses is predominantly residential. However, in respect of the various forms and finishes of the built form in the locality, there is a mix. The site itself is vacant. It's a brownfield site. It was previously occupied by a bungalow which has now been demolished. To the north, a care home that was recently approved has now finished being built out on the site of the former public house known as the Woolpack. Further to the west, although levels on site are relatively consistent, levels fall towards the east-facing rear elevations of properties on Spen View, which you can see just on the aerial image there. I took this photo looking west from the public highway. You can see the roof slope of the adjacent care home there to the north. The application proposes a petrol filling station with associated sales kiosk with 1 point of access and 1 point of egress. There would be 6 banks of petrol pumps. However, it is important for members to note that as this is an outline application with all matters reserved, this plan is merely indicative and is subject to changes at reserved matter stage. That being said, although all matters are reserved, officers have thought it necessary to bring forward environmental health considerations, specifically around noise. This is because of the predominantly residential nature of the area, and just to ensure that this is an appropriate use given that residential nature. To that end, during the application process, following the submission and review of noise reports, Environmental Protection have recommended that the jet wash element that was previously proposed in the scheme is removed, and that has been reflected in the updated indicative site plan now. As you can see there, that green area of landscaping to the top left-hand corner previously had the jet wash, that has now been omitted from the scheme. Secondly, as well, just to make that point of how we've brought forward review of important matters, notwithstanding the outline status of this application, highways have been consulted and have reviewed reports by the applicant's transport correspondence following concerns raised by them. Firstly, in respect of the ability for tankers to move in and out of the site, in terms of a swept path, which is what you are looking at here. And secondly, for queuing of cars along Heckman White Road. So on that second point, if I refer you to the committee update, the applicant's transport consultant has provided further information in light of that. Finally, I would like to draw members' attention to the fact that this site has extant planning permission for 6 dwellings arranged into 3 semi-detached houses. Although I do not intend to repeat what is in the report in front of members, I would just at this point highlight that the rear elevations of these properties, taking into account levels of the sites, were approximately 10 metres from the east-facing rear elevations of houses on Spen View. The site plan in this proposed application at hand is indicative. However, drawing a measurement line from those rear elevations to the approximate furthest west lane, there is about 17 metres in this application. Therefore, although this is an application for a petrol station, it is important just to bear in mind that extant planning consent for the houses. And there is just the elevational view of the houses that have been approved on site. To summarise, therefore, in this outline application, we are looking at the principle of development in this location. It's an unallocated site in the local plan. It would be a sui generis use. There is no policy exclusion or interdiction against such use on an unallocated brownfield site in a settlement. and it's therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you for that. Members, Councillor Pinnock. Sorry. You've got 3 minutes. You can start now. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Chair, members. So this planning application will help facilitate the development of a site that has been derelict for over 4 years. The derelict nature of the site currently detracts from the character of the area, and we'll see the development will actually see an improvement to the area. The development will fill a gap in the market that the applicants identified. I think there's a large area to the east of this site where there's no petrol stations in what is a highly dense residential area. We appreciate there are concerns from local people relating to traffic congestion, parking difficulties, and yet technical information submitted with this plan application demonstrates this will not be the case. Petrol filling stations generate very little traffic as they tend to serve passing trade. And what I mean by that is that people tend not to make a specific trip to a petrol station, but they combine filling up the car with the trip already they're making. So most customers will be driving along this road already, but will just decide to stop for petrol on that journey. Furthermore, this petrol filling station provides 6 parking spaces for people visiting the kiosk, which will provide off-street parking for people and will not create on-street parking problems as some of the comments made in this application suggest. Other shops and services in this area provide no off-street parking, so this development should reduce the number of people parking on the roadside. One of the key elements of the business model for a petrol station is convenience. Motorists will not stop if they think they have to queue for petrol or if they can't park immediately outside a kiosk. Think of all petrol stations you've visited, and apart from price, convenience is one of the paramount considerations you'll make when deciding whether to stop and visit the station. For business reasons, this petrol filling station cannot afford to be any different, and council officers confirm that the information submitted with this application demonstrate there will be adequate parking on the site. The development will not lead to greater congestion, and the development will not have a detrimental impact on highway safety. The officers already commented on the noise concerns raised and how we've amended the application to remove the jet wash, and once again, council officers are now happy that proposal will not have any significant impact on neighbouring residents. I hope you agree the proposed development is suitable for this derelict site, and you will approve this planning application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Right, members, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I find this very interesting, this application. The clue is in the title, a petrol filling station. How long will it be selling petrol to people then? That's an interesting question. I note that one of the conditions is to provide electrical vehicle charging points, which, but will it be charging points as a business model, if I can put it like that? But I was also intrigued by one of the things that's just been said about queuing outside petrol stations. There's one petrol station on the approach to Wakefield where I've seen quite a lot of vehicles queuing simply because their prices are lower than everybody else's, and that I'm sure does happen in other places as well. With that proviso, I mean, I'm in support of the application, but I just make these points because I think that petrol filling stations are going to have to make a change to something else in the fairly near future. Are they getting into the market to? Because there is another point that if this place becomes known as a good charging point for electrical vehicles, then there may well be queuing outside. But I can't comment any further on that. But I'd like to move approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lunath.
Thank you for that, Chair. I think I'm going to second Councillor Pinnock in relation to his comments that he's made. The one key one for me has been one of the conditions that I put in about the ECV points, the electrical vehicle charging points, whether the jet wash area, whether we could have, because of the fact that we've obviously mentioned more houses being built on another planning application, whether we could have more electric charging points, and whether that could be looked into for future reasons. But yeah, just I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Law?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second Councillor Pinnock in supporting this application. Just to add that, my husband goes directly for petrol. He doesn't go shopping and then get his petrol. And he does drive around as well, like Councillor Pinnock said, to see where the best petrol prices are. So, thank you.
Councillor Hall?
Well, I might be on my own here, but I'm not bothered. I did agree with what Andrew said right at the beginning. I found it a bit strange when I read that it was going to be a petrol station, especially where things are going about green emissions, etc. One thing I will say is I know times have been different this last couple of years, but it's not unusual for you to come across petrol stations where they're queuing out onto the main road. And it doesn't matter whether you go to places such as Morrison's, Tesco's in Cleckheaton, or your ordinary petrol station at the side of the road. It's quite possible that there's not much in the way of petrol stations if you go to the east of this area. As the village people did say, go west, and there are loads. There's one about a mile away just outside it and go out town centre. At a quarter of a mile on that you've got Morrison's, at half a mile on that you've got one at Swan, it goes on. So one thing though that really did stick out when you look at this map is the fact that next door to it is a care home. And I would not want a relative of mine living in a care home that's next door neighbour is a petrol station. One thing you've got to ask yourself is, you have a shop there, you've got to ask yourself what's going to be in the shop. As we know with some petrol stations, the fast food outlets, they're up until all hours, so there'd have to be a condition there. I did seek some advice about the fact that it's a petrol station so near to residential areas. I think Andrew might know what I'm on about when I mentioned Bristol and the Health and Safety Executive getting involved. Unfortunately, I can't apply that to this because I've asked, otherwise I would have done. There is an application that's been passed for 6 homes to be built on it. I do know that this area it's in, let's face it, it's in bad need of some brand new homes building down here, Josimar. So, whether my arguments are good, bad, indifferent, I'll go running with them, and I certainly won't be voting for this application. I don't even think it's a good idea, but I think what they're wanting to do is totally in the wrong place.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know how far is the care home from this proposed petrol station. Yeah. But looking into the application, I think the applicant is negotiation officer. They have listened to, I think, officer with regard to noise, and they have removed jet wash from this application, which is the main reason might lead to making noise to the care home. Yeah. Mr. Chair, this site is a brownfield site, yeah, and I think at the moment it's a vacant, nothing is happening. And the petrol station, in my mind, I think it would be better. Andrew has said how long they will be selling the petrol. But you might have noticed in these days, since the lot of post office have been closed, lot of quite few petrol stations are doing business with the online delivery. Yeah, people are picking up from petrol station. I'm not myself. My daughter has used petrol station here. They pick up and drop those delivery item back to them. So I think it's a benefit to the might be community as well on that reason. So I think it said in the report the lighting will be controlled. It won't affect the nearby care home or other area, and the highways are happy with that. So I don't think I have any problem to support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. So from a position of being generally supportive of this outline application, and it is an outline application, it's probably a good job it is, it comes with many questions that we would hope to be resolved, the reserved matters, and you know, things like opening hours, all of those things that we would expect to be resolved there, and that, you know, we would hopefully do the detail at that stage. From a position of genuine curiosity, what happens at the end of a petrol station's life when it comes to decommissioning it? Because are we going to be left, and this is just a general question, are we going to be left with another site with heavier remediation needing on it at the end of its life? Are we going to be left with another brownfield site in 10, 20, 30 years time? It's a question for you, Chair, for officers.
Through you, Chair, I think that's outside of the remit of this application at this moment in time. I think it's difficult to know where things are going. I think in terms of petrol filling station use, it is a sui generis use, so sort of any future change of use would require planning permission. So that's what we know for definite at this moment in time. Is that all right for the minute, Chair?
That's curiosity partially satisfied. Thank you, Chair.
I don't think the petrol is going to finish. It's going to carry on way over to 2030. You know, it's all, you know, they're saying this, people are still buying cars, you know, like 50, 80,000 pound cars are diesel. They're still buying, so.
I think in some form you're correct, Chair, and it will go beyond 2030. And we're getting a little bit philosophical here, I understand that. But, you know, when you do come across brownfield sites that are ex-petrol stations, they are difficult to shift. They are difficult to move on and rehabilitate. So it was really in that vein that I was looking at that, because, you know, there is a housing site. Councillor Hall has addressed some questions as well about housing. So it was more along those terms. As I say, as an outline application, I'm generally in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No. So we've got a Councillor Pinnock and Councillor Lunath.
To vote to delegate to officers to approve. Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Lawson. Councillor Stephen. Councillor Gregg. Councillor Lowe. Councillor Luna. Councillor Dadd. Councillor Hall. Councillor Sokol. Councillor Ramsey. Councillor Hussain. That's carried.
Yeah, that's approved. Thank you. No, that's fine, Councillor Sokol. Thank you very much for attending. Yeah, next application is 2021-92601, 22 Northrop Lane, Murfield.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Tom Harrison, Planning Officer in Development Management East Team. I'm here today to present planning application 2021-92601 at Northrop Lane, Mayfield. The application is seeking permission for the erection of a single-storey extension. On screen now is a photo from the front elevation of the dwelling. The dwelling is a brick-built semi-detached property. A bungalow borders the site to the south or right as you look at that photo on screen. The site benefits from a garden and driveway to the front, attached garage to the side and a larger enclosed garden to the rear. On screen now are photos of the rear of the site. Officers would like to point members to take note of the existing relationships between the extension on the attached neighbour, and in the top right corner is a picture of the neighbouring extension to the bungalow. The proposed single-storey extension will be in a wraparound form, projecting 2.85 metres from the original side wall of the dwelling and projecting 2 metres from the original rear wall. The walls will be constructed using brick for tiles and roof coverings, brick for the wall, and tiles for the roofing to match the existing. There will be no side-facing windows. The extension will provide an attached garage, utility room and a larger kitchen diner. Visually, officers deem that the extension is subservient, in keeping and does not constitute overdevelopment of the site. Thus, according with local plan policy LB24, the house extension alterations SPD and the MPPF with regard to visual amenity. With regard to residential amenity, officers deem that there will be no material impact on the neighbour, given the projection of the rear element is 2 metres compared to 3.3 projection of the neighbour's rear extension. With regard to the bungalow to the south, the single-storey side extension would align with the drive area, carport and flat roof element of the neighbouring property. The limited projection and separation distance means, in the opinion of officers, the extension would not result in a significant overbearing and overshadowing impact on the kitchen window of the neighbour. This is considering that a kitchen window will be deemed a non-habitable room, and nonetheless, officers do not deem that this extension is large enough to block this window in any event. For the reasons set out in the report and this presentation, officers deem that the proposed extension applies with all national and local policy with regard to extending the dwelling and is therefore would constitute sustainable development and recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Can we have Mr. Thompson, please? You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. The proposed development will cause significant loss of light in my lounge, dining room and kitchen. It's proposed to extend the present garage by 5.3 metres to the rear, going 2 metres beyond the rear wall of the house. This would bring the new rear corner to within 1.3 metres of my house wall and would only be 600 millimetres from being directly in front of my dining room window. The kitchen area is now being removed from the dining room. My lounge window will be facing a blank brick wall, which would be greatly reducing the light levels in lounge, dining room and kitchen. The fact that number 22, a 2-storey house, sits on land 1.2 metres higher than my single-storey bungalow makes this overshadowing even worse than if the land were level. None of the elevation drawings have height dimensions and do not show the disproportionate relationship of the proposed development to my property. Light levels are already reduced on the side next to this extension because my windows are north facing. The bulk of the corner, coupled with the ground level difference and steeply pitched roof, would further greatly reduce light levels and amenity value. The lounge window and side door window under the solid roof carport would be in near darkness by being enclosed on 3 sides. There are 2 upper storey windows shown on the plans above the new garage, which directly face onto my house. I would ask that these are required to be of obscured glass to prevent overlooking and lack of privacy. A secondary concern is the strength of the ground at the corner position to support the weight of the construction. As the ground is considerably higher and is retained by a weakly constructed vertical wall, doubt must exist as to its stability and support the weight. No ground survey data has been supplied to test this. Mention is made in the planning officer's report of the possibility of windows being added at a later date. To the side elevation, I quote, "There would be no loss of privacy as this would look towards the drive of the neighbouring property. In fact, they will look directly into my side windows." If the committee was so minded, I would ask that a condition be included to prevent windows being added to the side elevation at a later date, or the garage being changed into a residential room, or that a second storey cannot be built above the new garage, which was in the original application. I have no objection to the rear house extension or the garage extension. It is the corner element causing loss of light and privacy concerns by its closeness. Permitted development rights would only allow one or other of these extensions. In conclusion, I would ask that this application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair.
You get 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. A little bit like David and Goliath, this, isn't it? You've got a big two-storey house up here, you've got a little ditty bungalow down here. And while there is no objection to the single-storey 2-metre extension at the rear, in keeping with the existing property, there are objections to the corner and side. And I've got several concerns. The necessary excavations to build the foundations for the proposed application, they're still going to be too close to the boundary wall. It will be unsafe considering the foundations will be dug into ground 1.2 metres higher than the side of the neighbouring bungalow, ground that currently is supported by a weak retaining wall to the side of the neighbouring property. As to date, I've seen no evidence of a ground survey having been carried out and submitted alongside the plans. Surely some investigation should have been made and submitted at the same time the application was made. I'm certain there is a need to test the stability of the subsoil to ensure it could support the weight of the proposed extension. Given that the foundation concrete will need to be wider than the wall of the extension, there is a potential for collapse. I do appreciate that changes have been made to this application before coming to committee in its current form. And even though the wall of the proposed extension is now 30 centimetres away from the boundary wall, it will make little or no difference to the forces on the retaining wall, nor will it lessen the impact on the neighbouring bungalow. I refer to paragraph 7.6 of the report. The issues do not relate solely to the kitchen window. It's a kitchen dining room. If you are minded to pass this application, the rear corner of the side extension will be directly in front of the kitchen dining room windows on the neighbouring bungalow. And as the extension will be on a much higher level by comparison, this will result in such a loss of light to the dining, kitchen and lounge, it will cause a lack of privacy and will therefore be detrimental to living amenity. It's also likely to cause great difficulty when the need arises to carry out any necessary building maintenance to the neighbouring property, as the proposed side extension will result in access difficulties. Currently, there exists a flat roof attached single-storey garage. This proposal is to demolish and replace the garage with a 6-metre long extension, a steeply pitched roof, and by comparison to the existing garage, the new proposal will extend rearwards by 5.3 metres. That's a projection of 2 beyond the original house. This will cause a loss of privacy to neighbouring properties. It will cause extreme overshadowing to the front of the side of the bungalow. It will reduce the available light to the entire length of the bungalow. Paragraph 9 of the report says the main issues are visual amenity, yes. Residential amenity, I agree. Highway issues, yes, you may well lose a parking space. And Northrop Lane is very narrow and cars park to either side. I don't actually know what other matters in paragraph 9 is, as they're not clarified. But surely visual, residential and highways is enough to refuse this application. I quote LP24 Design B, Kirklees Extensions and Alterations, Supplementary Planning Document. Item 4A, a reasonable amount of space should be provided around new extensions in the interests of the amenity of future residents and to prevent overlooking and undue loss of privacy to any existing residents. This application does not meet that criteria. It's huge in comparison to little David the bungalow down here. Paragraph 10.4 of the report says the side extension will be subservient to the host property. It may well be, but it's not going to be subservient. to Little David the bungalow that's right down here, it will dominate. It will cause a lack of light, a loss of privacy, and it's inappropriate. Sorry, how much time have I got left, Chair?
30 seconds.
In that case, then I'll wrap up. Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. This is one of those applications when a site visit would actually be quite useful. And unfortunately, I've not been able to go and look at this particular property, but from the descriptions that we've had, I can't completely make up my mind. It does sound as though this will be far too close and far too overpowering to the neighbour. You've got a choice between a wall with windows in and a wall. The wall will still be there, and I've made this point in relation to the first application. A blank wall is just as bad in some ways if it's too close to another property. It doesn't actually solve the problem, and I'm not quite sure that I've got enough grounds to recommend refusal on this, although maybe it ought to be investigated. I just think that the relationship between the house where the application is coming from and the next door neighbour is just too much. Whilst one can't really be against the rear extension, particularly if it kept away from the next door, this I think goes over the limit. I'll sort of hold that in abeyance for a bit. I could potentially be moving refusal, but I'm not sure. And particularly if we are able to go and have a site visit, that might get over that problem. I'll leave it at that, Chair, and see what other people have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Gegg.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, could somebody clarify who owns the fence in between the properties?
Through you, Chair, in terms of, we've not got that detail, and like I said, it will be separate to the actual decision on the planning application. I can confirm that the extension wouldn't result in the removal of that fence or the boundary, and that the correct red line bound application site has been submitted. I'll leave it at that for a minute, but if you want me to come back in to clarify anything. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Is that okay, or do you want to carry on?
No, thank you. I completely understand. If I was living in the bungalow, you wouldn't want something to be blocking your light coming into your house. Are there any material planning considerations for blocking light?
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of the residential amenity, that is one consideration. What I'll just ask Callum to do is just to share the location plan, because what's also a material consideration is the permitted development side of things, which is referred to in the report. So what I'm just going to point out to you is what could actually be done under permitted development, so that just is in your mind. So looking at the plan in front of you, the garage on the side, that could be built under permitted development along with that utility room behind it. And then separately to that, the kitchen extension at the back, that could be built under permitted development. So the element that you're looking at, which is why it needs planning permission, is purely that area where that toilet, that WC, is located in that corner. So just to give you a bit of context in terms of what could actually be or constitute permitted development, which is material to your consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair. I think that corner is the offending part of the application, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe that's exactly where the window is. I mean, I've only seen on Google Maps and the planning photographs that we've had, so I haven't been to the site, but it does seem like that window on the corner, which in itself is an extension, I believe, Chair, the bungalow has an extension, so that's probably why it's so close to the boundary of the neighbour's wall anyway. But because it's so low down, you're looking right out onto the new application, which ultimately would block light into the window. I would be minded if it could be changed slightly so that it wasn't blocking light into that window, but I don't know whether that's possible for that to happen.
Thank you for that. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just struggling a little bit with this one. I do appreciate that people, as families grow, want to extend the properties. And I'll be like a broken record and say, bring back 3D models so we can have a play and see what it actually looks like, because it's all right seeing it flat, but people do worry when neighbours start building extensions. Can I just ask officers, I'm struggling with a sentence, 10.9, a couple of sentences actually. There is a window in the side elevation which the neighbours identified as a kitchen. As a kitchen, this is not considered to constitute a habitable room. I just find that really odd thing to say. Can you enlighten me?
Through you, Chair, when considering planning applications, we have what's called habitable rooms and non-habitable rooms. So your habitable ones are ones where you would tend to be sitting in and spending that time in terms of, like, say, sitting enjoying. So that would be like your lounge, your bedrooms. Those are all considered to be your habitable rooms. In terms of a kitchen where you come in and go in and out of there, so it's not actually a sitting area, that is then classed as a non-habitable, and that has actually been long-standing as part of the Unity Development Plan, which was pre-local plan as well, and is common practice with determination of planning applications. So yeah, just to clarify on that, Chair, thank you.
Can I just come back, because I know a lot of people whose kitchens are habitable, because you sit round, you'll have your family meal, you might play a board game, and I sort of just struggle with that one, I'm sorry.
Councillor Hall.
I'm thinking one of the rooms enjoyable when you're sitting down, but I won't want to. Usually it's where I go and hide. I think on this, if I'd have gone to see it, if we'd have had a site visit, I think I'd have been able to have decided. Now, I don't know what's possible at this moment in time. If Andrew were wanting to back me on this one, about bringing site visits back, as we keep getting told COVID is under retreat, and defer it until next committee meeting, then I would go for that. Because I would like to see next door, this application site and next door, and if I did, I'm pretty damn sure I'd be able to make my mind up. As it is, I can't. I've had a look on Google Earth, because usually you can tell things from Google Earth. On this occasion, I can't. So I'm finding it difficult to make a decision on what we've got in front of us without I actually go and have a look. Whether I go with others as a committee or whether I go on my own.
Yeah, thank you for that. But officer just told me that next meeting there will be site visits.
I'll move. Defer it and for a site visit.
Any other members? Okay. Right. Yeah, Councillor Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. Going back to what Councillor Lowe said about the habitable rooms, it was mentioned that it's a kitchen and a dining room. Does that change anything? If you took a table in a kitchen, does it make it a dining room? And does that change anything in this respect?
Through you, Chair, yes it does. When it is a kitchen diner, that is classed as a habitable because, like I say, that is where the family would tend to sit and enjoy that area. So yeah, that would be classed as a habitable room. Thank you, Chair.
You okay with that, yeah?
Yeah, just because it was mentioned obviously earlier that if 7.6 is incorrect, then that obviously if it is a kitchen diner, then it does kind of change things. Like you say, you spend an awful lot more time in your kitchen. Kitchen with a dining table in, or is it? Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other members? No?
Would you be minded to defer for a site visit? If that's unanimous, we'll just do a show of hands. Yeah, okay, so it's deferred to the next meeting.
Yeah, that's deferred. So moving on to item 11, application number 2021-93329.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the partial change of use of building from sui generis drinking establishment to B8 storage and distribution use, partial demolition of existing building and erection of two-storey extension to compromise the ground floor B8 storage and distribution use and C2 residential use and other associated works. The application is being brought to committee given the number of representations that were received. On screen now is an aerial image of the application site. The site is accessed via Leeds Road, whilst dwellings bound the site to the south and the east. 6 Lane Ends Public House is a large single-storey flat roof structure of its time. Approximately a third of the building to the right-hand side as you look on screen there is currently utilised as a storage and distribution use which benefited from permission in 2020. This site has a car park to the right hand side and a van sales use also. As you can see, the building is faced with painted brick and also benefits from being faced with some cladding. The photo to the left shows a former beer garden which is now overgrown and vacant. The image to the right shows the part of the building which has already been converted to a storage and distribution use. The images on screen again show the vacant part of the building. On screen now are the existing elevations to the left and proposed elevations to the right. The proposed development would see the storage and distribution use occupy the entire ground floor, whilst residential accommodation would occupy the first floor. The northeastern elevation of the building would be demolished with a two-storey structure erected in its place. The ground floor would be used for storage with 2 roller shutters for access from the northeastern elevation also. The proposed materials are to match existing. The site would utilise the existing access from Leeds Road, with vehicle access continuing around the south-east side of the building. 6 parking spaces would be formed alongside a hard standing area where the overgrown beer garden is currently located. Highways DM have been consulted and subject to a condition for no large or medium goods vehicles accessing the site. They raise no objections to the site layout or proposed use. It should be noted that previous revisions included an access from Field Close, which you can just see in the top left of that plan there. However, this element of the scheme has been removed given that all 16 representations objected almost solely to this element and also due to highway safety concerns. The first floor would host 2 two-bedroom flats. Their layouts are mirror copies of each other. The use of the flats will be conditioned to be occupied by the owner, employee or dependent thereof the storage and distribution business, as the amenity is not considered sufficient for dwellings on the open market. Furthermore, the submission of a noise report will be conditioned to ensure the future amenity of the site is acceptable. This application has been assessed against relevant policies in the development management plan and other material considerations. For the reasons set out in full in the report, officers consider that the proposed scheme would allow an existing business to expand, whilst also representing a more efficient use of an underused building, whilst not causing material harm with regards to visual amenity or highway safety. It is considered that development would constitute sustainable development. Therefore, subject to the conditions summarised in section 12 of the report, officers recommend approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Members? Is everybody happy with it? Oh, Councillor Lawson?
Thank you, Chair. I think the piece that in the report that made my eyebrows kind of wiggle was the element about the ongoing use of the flats being protected for the owner and dependents. I don't think I've seen that come to committee before. I'm sure it does happen elsewhere, but I've not seen it. I've not seen it. So I think possibly I'd ask through you, Chair, about the ongoing enforcement of that and the reasonableness of that, and whether we are likely to see that. I mean, it's outside our gift, of course, but whether it's likely to come back, and what would be the chances of that being overturned as a condition?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, with regards to that, as you saw in the report, the purpose was that the amenity wasn't sufficient to have members of the public to stay on there, given the lack of amenity space, vehicles moving in and around the site and so forth. In terms of that condition, yeah, you're correct, it is quite rare, but we have used it before on other applications. I don't know if they were ones that came to committee or not, but it has been used. In terms of enforcement, we did assess it against the 6 tests, and we believed it was reasonable in the fact of the amenity issues. Enforceable given the fact that yes, we may not track the tenants as we would in any other occupation, but there is various ways that can be found out, whether it's through local residents, given the interest in this, whether it be marketed on the open market. It is quite easily supported through evidence, whether it is being supported to or being let to employees of that use.
So thanks, Callum. And in terms of, I suppose, examples where we've used similar type conditions, that would be, like, say, your agricultural type buildings, so like your agricultural occupancy. We've sometimes used it as well, do you know, when you've had a takeaway on the ground floor and then you've got a flat associated above. So just to sort of ensure that there's no, I suppose, residential impact if it was like an occupier separate to the use taking place. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And just to confirm, that would need further planning permission should they want to change it. That would be the case, wouldn't it?
So thank you, Chair, and thank you for the further question. So yeah, from that side of things, you would either need to apply for a removal or a variation of that condition should a different occupier not related to the premise look to occupy the building. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Luna.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for clarity, really. You mentioned no large vehicles. Obviously, I'm thinking about 2 large shutters, using it for a distribution site. Can you just clarify that a little bit for me? Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yes, so we did actually mention whether those roller shutters were really required given that condition. The applicant has agreed to that condition, and that small and medium good sized vehicles is actually a definition. Bear with me a second. Yeah, there. So small and medium goods vehicles are defined within the Road Traffic Act 1988. So it's again easily enforceable to what vehicles they relate to.
So would that be something that we could enforce and we could enforce? So if we were to go ahead, could we possibly look at this as something that we could monitor for a while, purely because the shutters worries me really as what it could open up to. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yes, that condition is enforceable, as I say, and we can let our enforcement team know about monitoring it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hall.
Right. One thing I am glad to see is that all vehicles will go in from the A62 leads up to Spill Road. Because as we know, right at the beginning it will feel close, which is a little cul-de-sac. Houses. I've no doubt that there'd be an argument about Ransom Strip, and that would a non-goer right from the beginning. What does bother me is that nearly all my life I've worked in warehousing and storage and distribution, whether it's at gas board or UPS. It is a noisy business, so one thing that really does concern me is the hours of work. I'd hate to think that they were bringing little vans in at 2 o'clock in the morning and putting shutter doors up that screech and Christ knows what on a regular basis, or indeed even if it were a one-off I'd be against it. So I think I'd like to know what hours they're proposing to work, what hours they're proposing to work over on a weekend, what it is what they're reckoning to be storing. But one thing is also with these another 2 flats upstairs is what size are they? Because we're getting more and more developers, especially building houses where they're trying to, oh, we can gain a metre here, or even if it's only 10 centimetres there, we can do this, and we know full well that they're doing it. So these 2 flats, I really would like to know what exactly they're going to comprise of, because we're seeing more and more cases on the news, and it's coming to us attention as councillors of people living in hovels. So I'd want to know, for my own peace of mind, what size these hereditaments are.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So your first point about the hours of operation, section 12 of the report for the conditions, condition number 3, states that no business-related activities shall be carried out on the premises, including deliveries to or dispatches from outside the hours of 8 till 6, Monday to Friday only. No business-related activities at the weekend. And your point about the standard of accommodation, that does meet the minimum space standards that are nationally prescribed. So essentially, the amount of space is sufficient for future occupiers, given it meets those standards.
Yeah, the only other one is I'd be concerned about what's being stored inside.
Yeah, through you, Chair. In terms of the actual storage, it is a storage and business use now. However, it's a relatively new business. We don't know specifically, and they don't exactly have to tell us either, given it is going to be within that B8 use. So yes, they might store one thing now, but they could change what they're storing and distributing as long as it falls within that B8 use. So yeah, and as Julie just stated there, we have got our noise report condition as well. So they would have to be in compliance with that in terms of levels of noise generation and any mitigation measures as well.
Yeah. Councillor Craig.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, could I see clarity on the hours you just referred to at the weekend around access for presumably customers who are paying for storage? If that makes sense.
Through you, Chair. I believe the site will be operated as storage and distribution per se, a company distributing goods from there rather than your individual storage units. However, the condition that has been put to the agent is 8 till 6, Monday to Friday, with no business related to Saturday and Sunday. So they have agreed to that. So thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other members? So we can go to the vote. Can we go mover and a seconder? Councillor Pinnick and Councillor Lawson, second.
Okay, so to vote to delegate 2 officers to approve, Councillor Pinnock, Councillor Lawson, Councillor Stephen, Councillor Gregg, Councillor Lowe, Councillor Lunat, Councillor Dadd, Councillor Hall, Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Fain. Carried, thank you.
That's carried. Thank you very much for your attendance and see you next time.